With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at lululemon.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
His code name's Jackal. He's an exceptional assassin.
Streaming now on Peacock.
He will kill again, unless we stop him.
Academy Award winner Eddie Redmayne.
You're paying me to kill him. I am charging you for getting away.
The Jackal's here. Look at the exits.
BAFTA Award winner Lashana Lynch.
I will find him, and I will kill him myself.
I like to win.
So do I.
The Day of the Jackal. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy. In Season 2, we explored Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Mist and Fury.
In our post-season content, we look forward to sharing listener feedback we received as well as interviews with some exciting guests. You can also expect to hear some special listener-requested content.
The views expressed by the hosts and guests are entirely their own and in no way represent the thought or intentions of the original author. This podcast is a discussion shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series spoilers may be discussed with or without warning. Explicit language as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, self-harm, and depression will reoccur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
We are so excited to have Gabriel Michael on with us today's episode. Gabriel Michael is a New York-based actor, director, writer, singer-songwriter, model, and fashion photographer. His acting career began in high school, and over the course of the past decade, he's been in countless theater productions, which includes touring with the Warehouse Theater, where he played Oberon in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, as well as a 76-show run in Chillicothe, Ohio's 45th annual production of Tecumseh. Most recently, Gabriel has been the voice of Lucien Vanserra in Graphic Audio's production of A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. Welcome, Gabriel.
Hi, Gabriel.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And you have no idea how special it is to have Lucien on the show.
Oh, thank you.
So that he can for once talk back.
Yes.
I enjoy the opportunity to spar verbally with you.
Okay. I'm up for it.
We were chatting a little bit before the show and the love that people have for Lucien and our listeners. Shout out to one of our listeners, Emily. She is a definite Lucien fan. And whenever I don't want to say speak ill of him, but maybe not hold him to the highest regard, people definitely jump to his defense.
As they should. They should. I have my, my defenses of Lucien. So if we get into that, I definitely have some good counters.
Yes, I will say, like, reading Wing and Ruin in a critical way, it's making me feel like, oh, Lucien, maybe I was a little too hard on you. No, I was not, but he's redeeming.
That I believe that is the book where I feel like you can start shooting him some bail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say he's very two-dimensional in the first two books of the series, but when we get to Wings and Ruin, he starts to have depth, and you start to understand his character and his choices a little bit better. So I'll give him that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, like, we do talk about a lot how people say, wow, in the first book, he's so different compared to the second book. And in the first book, he's trapped by Tamlin's power. Or no, he's not trapped by Tamlin's power. And he gets a little bit more sass and everything. And then in the second book, he is trapped by his power. So it's like, he's like two-dimensional and not really. Like he's just trapped in circumstances.
Yeah.
He definitely is. I think he, I love him in the first book because he had so much charm and so much, joy before it kind of, he kind of has to get a little sad. That's the word I'll use. It gets a little kind of sad throughout the other titles because he's dealing with so much. But yeah, no, I love him in the first couple books as well.
So we'll just kind of dive into some of these questions that we have here. What brought you into voice acting and graphic audio?
Ooh, thank you for asking. Well, I have been a voice actor strictly for 3 years. I always had an interest in voice. I grew up watching anime. My older sister, who's also a voice actress, she loves Sailor Moon, right? So she got me from a young age, saying moon, cosmic power like 80 times until we got it right. And so I've always wanted to do it. And then after I graduated high school, I went to college for acting. Then when I graduated college, I moved to New York. And for the first 2.5 years of being in the city, I had to pay those bills. So it was working at multiple restaurants. I virtually had no time to do auditions. And then that day happened where I just said, it's time to start my career. And then it was like, I got on Backstage, good old Backstage, never lets you down, because then a month later, I had an audition for an audiobook company that was seeking full-time narrators. And that's not usually how you kind of enter that industry. Mm-hmm. There was multiple auditions, landed it. The casting director hired me. The author said, I don't like his voice. So I didn't get the gig. And then a month later, they brought me back in. They were like, he made a mistake. He does love your voice. And then so from there, I was able to kind of transition out of working restaurants and start doing audiobooks. And I was looking for other big publishers I could, possibly work for, and graphic audio was a name that came by. I just sent a blind email with some demos, and then they gave me an audition, brought me onto their roster, and then 6 months later, boom, I got the audition for Akatar.
Wow.
That's amazing.
What a quick timeline.
Seriously.
It doesn't feel short. Because when you're a freelancer, you have to kind of like be greedy with your work, and it's so hard when you're new and you're starting out. And so it feels, especially in voiceover, when you do audiobooks and things, you can really quantify how long you work down to the second. So it may have been, a year or two after I started, but for me, that's just like countless hours of auditions and editing and speaking and smaller books. Mm-hmm. So it feels very earned.
Oh yeah. Just like doing the podcast, and we're just a podcast, and we're not narrating a whole book. The amount of time it goes into reading, because a lot of our stuff is scripted, just so that we make sure our points are like clear and concise. But going back in editing and making sure you're saying things correctly, and I joke all the time that like I sound like a drunken sailor. I cannot speak to save my life. And yet here we are. So I definitely can see, yes, it was like a short timeline, but wow, the amount of hours I'm sure you put into it.
Yeah. Especially when you're full-time. I can't even imagine. This isn't our full-time. So I can see how 6 months or a year feels like forever, because it is a lot of hours.
Especially it was right there in the pandemic when I got started. I think it was 3 months before the pandemic hit when I started working at the audiobook company. But I was very fortunate that in the voice industry wasn't an industry that was as hit as other industries, especially restaurants, which paid my bills for 6 years. And so I just felt very fortunate that I was able to have a job that kept me afloat, because I feel like any other time anything happens in our world, it's like I'm definitely never spared. And this was one where I was like, oh, wow, I kind of got lucky.
I mean, seriously, right before the pandemic, that is really good timing. And I don't know, it's nice. Like, you do have a very soothing voice. I'll have to look up what other audiobooks you do, because I'm a follower of voices. Like, I have listened, when there's a narrator that I really like, I will follow them.
Oh, thank you. You know what? I'll send you some links to some stuff that I'm particularly proud of.
Oh, good. Yes.
So you mentioned briefly that you weren't aware maybe of the depth of the fandom for ACOTAR. Were you even aware of A Court of Thorns and Roses as a book before you started the project with Graphic Audio?
Oh, no, not at all. I didn't know anything about it. My lovely director, Miss Colleen Delaney, she reached out to me about an audition. And usually at Graphic, usually any type of publisher, you're on a roster. And so they'll cast you, usually. But I guess because this was such a big, situation, it required an audition. And it required multiple auditions and callbacks. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay, this must be kind of big. And I did get the name of the character and a Wikipedia link. So I was like, oh, I don't usually get this. And, I was like, what is this? So I click on it and I couldn't talk about it for a while until I got cast. But even when I got cast, I didn't know. But my oldest sister, who I just mentioned earlier, she is a writer and she's a big reader. And so I said, hey, Nastasia, do you know this book, A Court of Thorns? Before I even finished, she screamed at the top of her lungs. She was like, what? I said, yeah. I'm like, and she's like, who are you? Who are you playing? I'm like, Lucien. She screamed again. And then people from college, when I started posting it, were just, who had read these series. So I was like, wow, okay. Like, you always hear how that happens. Like, did you know it was a big craze? And I didn't. And it was such a lovely surprise.
That's amazing. I always feel like with ACOTAR, everyone knows someone who knows it, and then the people who know it love it. Like, it's a large fan base, but a secret one too.
Yeah, definitely.
And that must be so gratifying to have people in your life be excited because they have a love for the character that you're about to play. Do you feel like that added extra pressure?
It did. I also one of those actors who's very self-deprecating at times. And so I just wanted to make sure I was doing a good job because it required so many auditions. I really wanted to do the best job I could. And that's where my director, I can't say it enough. She really came in clutch because I can go back and listen to the first book that I recorded as Lucien and enjoy it so much. But I remember being in the booth, just like crossing my fingers on every single line, just like, God, I hope that was good. I hope it was good. What am I doing? And then, to get the response that I got, especially for Lucien, it really does mean a lot.
I was just thinking, like, Lucien is the perfect character to have your brother be. Because you get to listen and be really excited and just be like, that's my brother. And it's like such a endearing, like as much as we rag on him, he is an endearing character. And then, but at the same time, you don't have to withstand those like awkward scenes. If it was like your brother and you have to listen to Rhysand and Farah together and be like, no, but I love Rhysand and he's my brother. No.
And my sister is also like, she also has a very like motherly persona with her younger siblings as well. So she definitely is the one who's like, Gabriel, I know you're my brother. She goes, I don't like it when the girls are saying like you're cute, or I don't like these things. She goes, but I love that you're working. So she was very happy that she did not have to. I can only imagine like the siblings of like Rhysand and like with Melody and Anthony and the things that they have to read.
I know, like now that I'm thinking about it, I hadn't registered that, but I'm just trying to imagine like a family member like reading a character that I love and then hearing that. I would never be able to enjoy. I just would, the sad, all right, by chapter 54, 57, or 50, 54, 55.
Think if you were related to Cassian and Nesta when they have to do Silver Flames.
Yes.
Have you read Silver Flames, I hope? Or
I have not read it yet.
It's spicy. It's spicy.
It's very spicy.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It is spicy. Yeah, I'm those actors looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's just say the Rhysand Farah content is tame. Is like a walk in the park by comparison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. It's like going back after like reading Silver Flames and we went back and we were doing Mist and Fury. It was like, oh, you mean the whole scene was just a page? Like,
it's not that bad.
Oh, okay. It's pretty fine.
There isn't that much detail. It's okay.
Yeah. So there's definitely a diehard, as we were saying, people love Farah and Rhysand, but the Lucien community. out there. It is the most diehard group of people. Like, they love their Lucien. We encounter them on a weekly basis. And I would say, like, would you, when you read the novels, was he your favorite who stood out? Like, I know you probably went into it knowing that he was your character, but do you think he would have been your favorite if he wasn't someone that you were reading for?
Okay, yeah, so I have to compartmentalize that. I mean, I love characters like Lucien. One, I love that name. That's one of my mom's favorite names ever. And so I like that. I like the way his character is described, like, physically. For me, he's my type. Just in general, for those who want to know. Even the ears.
Yes.
But I think he still would have ended up being one of my favorites. Every time I would kind of go look at the character and look at his log line, it would always just describe him as a person who had, a personality on the outside that was very somewhat like a court jester, but on the inside, was dealing with some scars, and we learn what those scars are. So I always like characters like that. I feel like that's life, like we all have an interior and an exterior. And I feel like because he is caught between the fallout of everything happening with Tamlin, but his allegiance to Tamlin, I feel like it makes him really relatable. So he's a person who's kind of caught in the crosshairs. A lot of people dislike his character for that very reason, but I like it because I think he gets to just kind of be pulled through the story and have things just affect him because he isn't Tamlin and because he isn't Rhysand.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only character that has to walk away from a friend. And that's really hard. Like, people don't appreciate friend breakups as much as like romantic breakups. But I mean, him and he spent hundreds of years, I'm pretty sure, with Tamlin, and then a solid 50 years where it was just the two of them, or dwindling down to just the two of them. And they have like this really tight bond. And he has to walk away from his best friend and just be like, maybe you're not as healthy as an individual I thought you were, and maybe I need to go find my own passions, aka Elaine.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely Tamlin was a friend, but Tamlin also gave him a place to stay when he was technically homeless. So, it's that classic story of there's that friend or that person who you're indebted to because they provided for you. But now that same person who did provide those things, they're starting to go down a bad rabbit hole. And I think Lucien makes excuses at first, and then he always challenges Tamlin. That is one thing that people don't give him enough credit for. He does challenge Tamlin. And when you see what the things that Tamlin is capable of when he is angry, challenging Tamlin is no small feat. Because some people don't survive that, as we learned, but those poor centuries. But he, I feel for him. You can hear it in my voice. I'm so sympathetic for his character.
When he starts to really stand up to Tamlin, those are the moments that I start to really appreciate. We do give him, we do give him a lot of flack on the podcast of like, come on, you could try harder, but. He is like hearing from a sympathetic voice. Like, he is in a very tight spot. And so, all right, Amy, we have to re-record season 1 and 2 now. Make sure we have. No. But have you ever seen any of the fan art of, this is not included in here, I'm sorry, but I'm just thinking about the diehard fans. Have you seen the fan art of Lucien?
Okay, yes, within the past month. Yeah, within the past month or so, when I first started kind of doing little interviews or podcasts, people would send me things. That made me love him even more. Especially if we ever get to Elaine. The art between them two is just so good.
It's good. It's very good. It has such a range from beautiful to like, oh damn, am I allowed to see this on Instagram? Is this allowed?
Yes, because they're the ones where looks a little bit younger, very very pastoral, very beautiful. But then there are some of the pictures where it's almost like dark side Lucian.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of one in particular, one picture where it's like, ooh, so yeah, like okay, so this is like a brooding version. This is if HBO picked up the series, and then you have like
HBO Lucian,
and then you have CW Lucian. I cosplayed him a couple of weeks ago. It was my first time doing a cosplay. It was on my TikTok. I think it's on Instagram. It was my
You did a good
first
job.
time. I enjoyed it very much. The ears were a little big, but like we're gonna perfect this. I think for Halloween I may come with a different version of Lucian.
Oh, that would be amazing.
There are not enough cosplaying Lucians on TikTok, so I think you will be welcomed with open arms.
One characterization that's associated with Lucian is this fox, this two-faced fox, which really implies a shadiness. As an individual who's sympathetic to Lucian, do you characterize him as shady, or what do you associate with Lucian?
Okay, so we learn about other characters who are even more shady.
Yeah.
But if I just focus on him, I have a feeling that Lucian was shady in the events before he meets Feyre. All those years he spent with Tamlin, I felt like he was a little shady. He may have been like the poor, like lost lamb of his previous family, but it doesn't mean that compared to mortal standards that he was necessarily a good dude. But I think a sense of responsibility that being an emissary for Tamlin instilled in him maybe dialed back some of those shady antics. But I think it's really meeting Feyre and kind of seeing her plight and see her suffer, especially in the second book, where he starts being a person who's incredibly intentional all the time. I think he definitely had his fun in the years that he's been in Prithian. So I find him more sly.
Yeah.
I think he's really great with information. I remember reading something early on about the author saying if she was to give someone their own book, it could possibly be Lucian, because he was a character who was smart enough to have his own book. And I kind of think about that. It's like, yeah, so he's a smart character. So I think there's an intelligence there as opposed to necessarily just a straight up deceitful persona.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And, you bring up a good point of, I don't think about his pre-Feyre time, like his past and his upbringing, but, you can't live in the Autumn Court with all of his murderous brothers and his insane father and not have some kind of like shadiness to you and just to survive.
Exactly.
Right. I had the same thought as you were speaking, Gabriel, that the slyness that he has in some ways is just a tool of survival. It's not necessarily with ill intent. It's just a mechanism that's gotten him this far.
Yeah, definitely.
Which then I think the question is like, why are we characterizing survival as a negative trait then, when in others it's brought as a more positive trait? Something for us to think about, Amy. Gabriel.
Yeah.
Just like,
like if I could add to that, we can pull in other worlds. I think of a character who's very different, but a character who embodies. Are you guys familiar with Vampire Diaries?
Yes.
I always loved Catherine, and and that was her whole thing. She survived, and she was a person who was very sly, but it was like this poor girl lost her entire family years ago. Like she has been surviving all these years. It is a survival, tactic, especially look at the world we're living in. We're surviving a pandemic, and amongst other things. And I think you can't really fault someone completely who's just trying to survive, especially if they are not the most powerful player at the table.
Yeah. It's a good question. I'm going to have to now, when we do Wing and Ruin, I'm going to have to like constantly ask like, well, why is one character's survival instincts held to a higher standard than another?
I mean, because even Feyre, like I joke, there's another book talker I joke with this all the time, but I just forgot his name. Oh my goodness, the wolf that Feyre shoots at the beginning.
Andress.
Andress. Like, that was her survival instinct. But it was like Andress had a whole life. Andress had a whole duty and responsibility, and people who cared about him, including Lucien. But she did what she had to do.
Right.
And yet we applaud her.
Right.
So it's I'm gonna have to now. I'm gonna think about that for a good long while, and not just like this book and other books and other forms of media. Like, wait a minute.
Yes,
What am I seeing here?
I'm doing my job.
You are. Oh my God. We're going to be Lucien sympathizers.
Oh
no. My street cred.
As a Gemini, I probably also am biased towards a sly character because, we are prone to our reversal. So maybe I'm giving him a bias there.
I respect that. Amy's a Taurus. I'm a Libra. But,
okay. Great signs all around. Both of those signs are ruled by Venus. So there's a commonality there.
Yes.
And then we have our moon and rising are the same, which is funny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we can have a whole discussion about that.
We can. We need to go into I saw someone on TikTok do a whole astrology breakdown on Farrah, as much as they could.
Oh my goodness. Can you link me to that, please?
I'll have to find it. Yeah, I'll find it and I'll send it out because it was just we know she was born on winter solstice, so you can kind of get an idea of when. So just what are her traits?
Yeah.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. My entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
So what do you think then of Lucien and Tamlin's relationship? And then even with Lucien and Farrah's relationship?
So I mentioned that he feels indebted to Tamlin, but I also feel like a lot of his identity is in Tamlin. There's the trauma of Jasminda and finding refuge in Tamlin, this person who holds a lot of power within the court. I feel like he feels like it was his second beginning, a new beginning that kind of put him on a different path towards a different destiny. And to have all that kind of come in to be crumbling right before him, I think that's hard for him to admit. I think before the events of Mist and Fury, I think he is very happy and very satisfied with his role in the court and his relationship with Tamlin. They really do complement each other very well. It seems like he does give a lot of pushback that is very much needed. He yields when he has no choice but to. But I think, when we talk about, let's get to it. Let's talk about Farrah and kind of the trauma that she experiences at Tamlin's hands and how complicit Lucien is in that. I think Lucien is complicit. He tries to fight that, but then I think especially, you get pieces of it in Mist and Fury, but especially in Wings and Ruin, he really feels bad. He tells Farrah, you're a better friend to me than I ever was to you. So he realizes that he could have done more. But, not to get too political, but men can also be abused. And I think he's also being abused by Tamlin and being manipulated for far longer than Farrah has. So he's
that's a fair point.
She couldn't take it for as long as she couldn't take it. It's like he's been dealing with it too.
Yeah.
And both Lucien and Farrah have lost loved ones, and are kind of in this, this big manor and this new life that's been put before them. And so, Lucien just wants to, he wants to do right by Tamlin. I think he feels really bad. I think he also blames himself for Jasminda. So there's a lot of shame within Lucien.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's hard for him to separate himself from Tamlin's actions at times because he kind of blames himself. So I think what's really interesting with his bond with Elaine, I think that allows him to kind of step away from the past. I don't want to because we may talk about that later on, but I definitely think Lucien needs to come to terms with the past, and that who he was and who the people were to him is not the present, and that he can forge a new path, and he may have to let some people go, both Tamlin and Jasminda. I think it's all wrapped up into his guilt and his shame for what happened.
Yeah.
You make such an interesting point that reminds me of something we said in early season 2. So during season 2, we did a literary analysis of Mist and Fury. And we talk a lot about how we believe Feyre, because of her guilt for killing the fairies under the mountain, views Tamlin as her punishment. And there are, to your point, a lot of parallels between Feyre's experience and Lucien's experience, especially at the hands of Tamlin. To what extent does Lucien feel so much guilt about Jasminda that he views abuse at Tamlin's hands as justified and deserved because that's his form of punishment?
Yes. To me, that was a lot of these conclusions I've come to about Lucien, I've come to within the past couple of months of, doing each book after doing each book. But that was something that I picked up on as really quickly, that it is a lot of guilt. He feels like he kind of doesn't deserve anything, beyond what he has. I don't think he's experienced true joy after Jasminda for a while. And it's almost like Feyre's presence is like Belle in the castle. She kind of starts some new things in him, gets him thinking about different things. But until then, he definitely said, this is my lot in life. It's not a bad lot to have. But it does mean that he's going to overlook some treatment and some flaws within Tamlin, because anything is better than the Autumn Court.
Yeah, I mean, he went from one abusive dynamic to Tamlin, who, I'm sure it wasn't abusive at first, and I'm sure it didn't seem abusive to him, especially since he was fighting for his life in his home prior. And then you have Feyre come into the picture, and now things start to kind of be more obvious. He starts to view okay, maybe this isn't normal. And then Feyre's able to walk away. And I can't imagine the amount of admiration and resentment that he might have towards her, of the fact of you were able to walk away. I had to deal with this forever, and you got to walk away. Granted, she had Rhys to walk away too, but there's a lot of complicated emotions that I did not
think about.
give credit to.
When Lucien encounters Feyre in the woods in Mist and Fury, and he's like, "We need you to come home." I do wonder to what extent he feels abandoned by Feyre. It's not just about Feyre leaving Tamlin, but Feyre having this kindred spirit.
Those scenes were hard to do.
Were they?
Those scenes were hard to do. Yeah, they were, and they were hard for me to read. As corny as that may sound, they really were, because I don't know why. Maybe I was just really in the mind of Lucien, or maybe it was just my response as a reader. But I felt like she was abandoning him, even though I knew the life that was waiting for her back in Tamlin's court was not a good one. I wasn't even thinking about Tamlin. I was just thinking about Lucien and thinking about Feyre and thinking about their relationship. I was thinking about her influence on Lucien, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want Feyre to get away, partly because I feel like she's starting a lot of growth within this character. And I think he even feels that, even if he can't voice it at first. I felt a heartbreak when he discovered that she was bonded to Rhysand. I felt a heartbreak as this character, and I didn't know why, but we can chew on that, I guess.
It's good. I mean, in We and Ruin, we get a lot more of the that's why you left. Like, you had a better life out here. And he realized, he even says, like, I didn't realize I was the bad guy in your story, that I was the villain, and that he helped contribute to all that. So yeah, no, I mean, it is like a heartbreak of like, not only did you leave, but you had a good reason to leave.
Yeah. Speaking of, that's probably one of my favorite lines.
Well, that goes into our next question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Shoot.
What scene or what book was the most fun for you to perform, or your favorite to perform?
Okay, the most fun. Oh, that is hard. I go back to that very first scene that he is in with Tamlin and Feyre at the dinner table. That was a lot of fun because that Lucien had a lot of like, he's coming with a lot of opinions. A lot of his opinions revolve around Tamlin, but that scene, that's one where he disagrees with Tamlin. He's like, why is she here? You know, he's just insulting her left and right. It was just so fun to let those zingers fly. But I also love Aquawar. You know, in the part 1 version in graphic audio, you really get to see so much of his relationship with Feyre. You know, when he leaves with her, and you get to hear a lot. You get to hear what the things that Tamlin did that she didn't get to see that were hard for Lucien and everyone around Tamlin to watch him do. So that was fun. But Mist and Fury right there in the middle, that was hard, especially talking about Jesminda. That was probably the hardest thing to do in the booth. I practiced it. So you don't always, as a voice actor, you don't always have the time to practice the more stuff you do because you're busy. But this one, I really wanted to nail that monologue when he's talking about what happened to her. And I was sobbing on like every other take when I was practicing. And then you get into the booth and sometimes the emotions don't always come the way you want them to. But that's where, Colleen, what I really like about her direction is if you do something, especially if it's a monologue, something that is meant to kind of have a lot of impact, she'll say, okay, do it again and just do whatever you want. Do something else. And I would like to believe that's her kind of giving me permission as the actor. Hey, you just kind of took us on this journey. I can tell there may be more things you want to say about that journey. So do it again. And so hopefully we came up with something good, but that was a difficult scene to do.
The emotions definitely come across, and I love knowing how much, I don't want to be like, I love knowing how much hard work it was for you, but it's just, what I mean to say is like, I love knowing how much you felt in it, because as a listener, we felt that too.
Oh, thank you. That makes me just, yes, as the actor, but especially as the character, knowing that you are not playing necessarily one of the heartthrobs. I think Lucien has become a heartthrob among the fans, but when you're serving a best friend function. Anytime Lucien is given dialogue that brings out his depth, as the actor, I'm going to mine for it. I want it to come across because you don't know when you're going to see him again. He's like a fox. He's so aloof. Like, is he going to be in this book? Is he going to be in that one? So whenever he shows up and talks about his emotions, I definitely just want it to really have impact. So it's fun for me. I think
your passion and I think your dedication to him as a character really comes across.
To the point where I want to, so I listened to Thorns and Roses and Wing and Ruin and Mist and Fury after we'd already pretty much we were done with Thorns and Roses and we were pretty much almost done with Mist and Fury for our seasons. But I noticed that as I was listening to the graphic audio, I was and hearing everyone's interpretation and their acting, I was like, more thoughts came up and it just kind of pushed me to think about literature in a more critical way while listening to actors, which I found to be fascinating to think like, oh, you guys are doing it in this direction. I hadn't thought of that when I was reading it critically. So now I am excited to have at least the first part for Wing and Ruin to listen to before we record for that season. Cause I'll be and especially with Lucien, cause I think that's one where we go hard in, mainly because we haven't had a lot to analyze and we have so much to analyze with him at the beginning.
Oh, that makes me really happy to hear. And I want to say ditto on my end in terms of, I come in as the actor, and the more I know about the fandom and how the fans are responding, the more it gets me excited to get into the booth. You know, certain times for certain books, I have more involvement in the story than others, especially because, you know, graphic audio breaks the books up in parts. And so sometimes I have a very small part, and certain friends that I've been able to make over TikTok or Instagram who follow this story, they will send me little tiny clips of audio from the books and the parts of the books that I thought I had very minimal involvement. But because it's so much larger than me, and it's so much larger than Lucien, it's its entire world, it really just reminds you every word I get to say in the booth as this character, it's saying something about the character. And there's thousands and thousands of fans who have opinions about this story. And so I try to take that into consideration when I think, okay, like this line, you know, I'll just deliver it this way. It's like, well, no, you know, really, really put your heart into it, because you're saying something about this story.
I think that's a great point. You know, from a writing perspective, both Jack and I studied creative writing in college, and we still write on the side. When it comes to writing and writing dialogue, every word counts. And so I can see from a voice actor point of view, like, oh, I have 5 lines today. That's not a lot. But from a writing perspective, like,
those lines are going to count.
Those lines mean everything. Like, we don't waste lines for any reason. We're always trying to reveal something, whether it be emotion or add to the plot or whatever the case is. Yes,
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder for me as an actor to just make sure I'm always vigilant, and that I'm always, you know, doing solid, my acting teacher would call it moment to moment work.
Mm-hmm. You really held back from talking about Lucien and Elaine earlier, and I felt like you had a lot of things to say about that.
Which brings us to our next question. Should Lucien and Elaine get together? Or end up together? OTP.
Gosh. Okay, so part of the reason why I hold back, I love the fandom, but I'm also scared of them. You know what I mean? So I never know what I also never know.
We can give our controversial opinion, if that, like, because I've been developing a controversial opinion as we've been doing Wing and Ruin. So if it makes you feel better, like, none of our listeners know how we feel, but, you know, they're used to our opinions of being like, well, not what you think. It's
okay. You know what? Go first. Let me know, and then, you know, and then that'll give me the courage.
Yeah, Amy and I have not talked at all about this, but I think analyzing Wing and Ruin, it becomes more clear just how much Elaine uses Azriel and Lucien to get away from her own reality. And I think part of the reason why she resents Lucien is because of her fiance, Grayson. All that to be said, as I'm even towards like the end of Mist and Fury, and as I'm going through Wing and Ruin, there's just so many clues as to like why Elaine and Azriel aren't it. Now, that being said, I think, like, you know, I agree where, you know, women should have the ability to choose, and it's not like a mate, like, you know, if she doesn't want to be mate, like, stick with him, then sure. But I don't know, as I've been reading everything, I'm like, you know what? I think there might be something here. I think we should revisit this, Elaine. I think you should be open to this. Amy?
Yeah, so as I've been reading through Wings and Ruin in preparation for season 3, I feel very, very strongly that Lucien and Elaine are going to make each other better. I don't know that they're going to end up as a romantic couple. I've always been an Elaine and Azriel fan, but I honestly think Elaine's presence is going to drive Lucien to be better and strive for more for himself. I think Elaine will see his goodness and admire that goodness, but I think ultimately Elaine's going to be alone. I think she has the strength to be alone, and I think Lucien, I don't know who Lucien's going to end up with, but I think they're going to be friends. That's my feeling.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I hope that inspires.
Yes, it does.
Tell us your thoughts.
I just want to say those were such lovely, nuanced responses. Thank you. That like sets me up really well. I too agree that they will make each other better. Because I love Lucien so much. I think if he was to be romantically paired with someone, I would want it to start start pure, start right. Oh, I can't find the right words.
No, I get it. Like, it's just the idea of his and Elaine's relationship started horribly from the get-go.
Yes. And a lot of their, the sisters' relationships start either horribly or like something against their will. Like Feyre is held prisoner. That was her introduction to this world that she now loves, but it's like that's how it started. And I think that with the character that the author has written with Lucien, I think if you want to do right by that character, I don't think a mate for him can just be another thing of circumstance. It has to be something he chooses. I think both Elaine and Lucien, they need real agency.
Yeah.
He's an emissary, but his agency was all through Tamlin. And then, there's always these discussions with Elaine of not needing more agency, but could stand to have a little bit more in comparison to Feyre. And I think a friendship where they both kind of just shape each other for the better is such a more impactful ending than any romantic pairing that can happen. I want so much for Lucien in terms of his happy ending. It has to come from within before it can come out. Because I think he loved Jesminda, but she has almost become a tragic ideal for him. She's been immortalized in this way. And Elaine, he doesn't know much about her. So she could also very well be a living ideal, but still an ideal. And I think I see Lucien as a character who's going to like disappear and go off on adventures. I kind of see him like George Clooney. George Clooney was like the perpetual bachelor for so long. Yeah. And I see Lucien in that way. I see him traveling. I want Lucien and Elaine to go off and travel. They need to see, especially Elaine, like there's so much about the world she needs to see and then be, go ahead. I see you.
I'm sorry. Just this idea of them traveling. Elaine from book 1 is always like, I want to go to the continent. Wouldn't it be awesome if Lucien took her to the continent just as a friend's like travel?
It would be.
Yes.
Besties traveling the continent together.
And I know he would. All I want, there were so many laughs I had to do as Lucien in the first book. I haven't been able to laugh a whole lot with him. Yeah. And I just picture him just knocking his head back and just laughing and having a great time traveling with Elaine. If you think about what the author has done with women in agency and the power of choice, I feel like we have archetypes for Feyre, archetypes for Nesta, and I feel like with Elaine, she deserves to also have her own unique story, and it deserves to be the way that we did not see things going left with Tamlin, and then she ends up with Rhysand. We deserve that same type of surprise with Elaine. We think that she's the sister who's just been groomed to just, be beautiful and sweet and kind and find somebody. But she also deserves to also kind of have her rogue moment where she's just like, does something so completely unexpected. I also kind of want her to go a little crazy. Like Jean Grey in like Wise, and they kind of have to bring her back from the brink. Yeah. I think that'd be great, but that's just like the drama kid in me, like really wanting that.
We talk a lot about Elaine and how TikTok, and I am guilty of this, really categorized her as this softer, weaker sister, the one who just kind of goes with the flow and is just there to be pretty. And, the more we read, the more Amy and I have been thinking like, wow, like she's actually a very strong character. And even Feyre calls out Elaine's strengths. And as you're talking about how Elaine and Lucien are well matched, it's a reminder that, your mate is supposed to be your equal. So yeah, Lucien struggled with agency, and so has Elaine. She's still figuring out her identity and what that is, and, being able to break away from Nesta, which was her own toxic dynamic, and being able to say, no, I want myself, I want my own.
Yes, the enmeshment of Nesta and Elaine.
Which, maybe Nesta was to Elaine as Tamlin was to Lucien.
Yes, I think that's a great parallel to bring up. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to think about that now. Yeah. I'm so happy we're doing this before we record.
Yeah, seriously. Well, we're so grateful for your time, Gabriel. And I feel like this was such an enlightening conversation for me.
Yes.
Especially as I begin to think about what we want to say for Wings and Ruin. Because I definitely have written in the margins of my book, why are Lucien and Feyre so chummy? We never got to see this before. this feels like a stretch. And I think because of this conversation, I'm going to be thinking much deeper about this character and his relationships with the individuals that we're going to see in Wings and Ruin.
Genuinely, you have changed the way that I view Lucien, and it's going to make me think harder on him.
Oh, thank you. I can also say, just off of this conversation, I'm still at Graphic and I'm still this character, and there's so much more for me to bring into the booth. So I'm happy I had this. This is very enlightening for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Feel goods all around. I've got chills.
It does. It does.
So before we wrap up, are there any projects you're working on that you want to mention to our listeners, or do you want to tell us tell them where they can find you?
Yes. So there is a lovely book where the manuscript has just come out, I believe, August 30th, called The Quarter Mage by an amazing author, Angelina Steffert. And she is going to be bringing it to audio, and I will be her lead producer for the book. It is going to be, I can't give too many details away, because there is supposed to be like a surprise reveal very soon with the voice cast. Some familiar names you may know, but that's coming soon. But yeah, we are going to kind of do background music, sound effects, maybe not a full on kind of like graphic production, but maybe an in between a regular audiobook as you would come to know it, and then kind of something that graphic does. But it's going to be really fun. A lot of fans who are fans of A Court of Thorns and Roses will love this. It's about a young girl named Sanja who is betrothed to someone she does not want to be betrothed to, and has to make this great escape, but she meets some new characters in the forest where everything seems to kind of take place, and there are fairies involved, and it's just such a great story, and I cannot wait for listeners to be able to hear it.
Sold. Done. I'm in.
Once again, the Quarter Mage by Angelina Steffert.
I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm on board.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm like forced marriage on it. There we go. Thank you again so much. I have so much, and I've enjoyed this conversation so much, and I hope we get to chat again. And I cannot wait for hearing more of your Lucien. And one day, fingers crossed, I am sure there will be an entire novel for Lucien, and I will be waiting for your
reappearance,
entire interpretation for that.
Yes. Fingers crossed. Maybe I can be in the TV show.
Fingers crossed.
We'll start the campaign here. Okay. Hulu will hear this.
Yes. But thank you. I've had a blast. And if you ever want me to make another appearance, please just say the word. I'll be more than happy to hop on here, and we can get into some books and talk.
Awesome.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for listening to this special episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform.
As we gear up for Season 3, where we will deep dive into A Court of Wing and Ruin, we will continue to share between-season thoughts, interviews, and exclusive content.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a weekly mini-episode.
If you are enjoying the podcast, visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and to learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.